I am honored to have another missionary with us tonight. We got Brady and Sarah Van Winkle. Do y'all ever get questions about your last names?
All the time,
Yeah.
the time. I mean, on deputation, we heard every joke about Rip Van Winkle you could imagine. So
I thought there was a Rip Van Winkle, so
yes.
you've got people make fun of you like that. But hey, I'm glad you joined us. And these guys are missionaries to Turkey, doing a wonderful work there. 2 years ago, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys came to the church and we took you on, correct?
Yes,
2
sir.
years ago.
About that.
And 2 years ago, they started language school and everything like that. So we're going to get questions on that. But I do want to put a plug in for his book, and Brother Michael can do that zoom in thing there. But he's got a book called World Evangelism: What Can I Do? And Brady, if they wanted a copy of this book, how can they get it online?
Easiest way is probably go to Amazon.com, and then you just type in that word evangelism, what can I do? And that'll come in as you can get it as a digital copy, or you can also, we just recently got it where you can order it direct from Amazon, and they'll ship you a physical copy of that book.
Wow, I tell you what.
So
I've got a book on Amazon too. Maybe yours will get more sellings than mine does, okay? But yeah, go to Amazon.com. What if they typed in your name? I mean, there's can't be that many.
no,
Brady
I'm sure
Van
if you type in
Winkles.
my name, there'll probably be a couple of books that are up there. I have a couple of books that are on Amazon. We have that Word Evangelism, What Can I Do? We have one about steps to becoming a missionary.
Oh, okay.
Also one about why Muslims need you, talking about reaching Muslims with the gospel.
I think I got that book too.
And then the one we have as a group, we had a team effort on this one. It's overcoming the impossible and talking about reaching Muslims with the gospel. And
Gotcha.
we have different guys who've worked in different Muslim countries. And so we put that together about last year, and I think it was last year it came out. So
That's exciting.
those are all on there.
It seems like every time that I turn around, there's some kind of book coming out of a vision. I'm like, how in the world do you guys got time to do anything doing that? But I think that's cool. So I'm going to open it up because I don't see any questions coming in. So I want to just ask these questions for our audience out there. What age were both of you when you felt God's calling to the mission field? Sarah, I want to start with you.
I grew up in a very missions-minded church, so probably my entire life, the Lord was kind of burdening my heart for missions. And then when I went to college, all of my friends were missions major, and I was the lone education major in our group of friends, so that was kind of still there. But I actually went back to my church in Withville and taught at a Christian school there, and then me and Brady started talking, and it was kind of like, oh, the Lord brought it full circle. So.
Wow. So y'all met at a school, I guess, or she was teaching at a school.
We both went to the same Bible college. We met at Crown briefly. We kind of just were acquaintances.
Right.
We had a couple classes together, but then after we graduated, she went back to her hometown. I went and was a youth pastor in Arkansas, and then we got reconnected actually through Facebook. Just sent a message on Facebook one day saying, how are you? And we started talking, and then we got married. So it was about 9 months later. It was there you go.
One, if you want to get married, there you go. That's the secret to getting married right there. Connect on Facebook, then you're married. Okay, that's great. That's great. I've done lost my train of thought.
You were asking about what age God worked in your heart. So
you were.
When I was a young person, 7, 8, 9, I had an interest in missions just because I love when missionaries came because I loved hearing their stories. The church I grew up had a man in it who had spent years in Africa, and I always loved when he came and told his stories in Africa. I thought they were the most amazing thing, but I never thought I could do something like that. I was like, these are like great men of God. I could never ever step out and be a missionary. But when I was 12 and 13, God began to really work in my heart, and at 13 I was at church camp and knew God wanted me a missionary, and I looked around the room, and I always tell people this, looked around the room and I saw like 2 or 3 of the older guys, and I'm like, God, those are perfect candidates for missions. You got the wrong guy. I mean, I don't know how I can get in front of people and speak. I'm shy, I'm quiet. And I said, okay, God. And so I was 13 years old when I surrendered to missions and just kept taking step after step, and it's amazing how God eventually led us to Turkey.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. I was at the age of 15 when I surrendered my life to full-time, whatever God wanted me to do, and I honestly thought that I was going to be a missionary. But the Lord, I guess, changed directions and put me now in the pastorate. But you said you spent some time in Arkansas.
Yes, sir.
I spent some time in Arkansas. We'll have to share some things off camera on that one. But I do have a question here from Anna. Anna asked, "What's y'all's favorite thing about being a missionary?"
Ooh, That's a good
You
question.
want to start, or you want him to start?
I think on deputation, it was just going to like different churches and stuff like that, and being able to connect with people that you never met before, but have that common bond. But I think now living in Turkey, just seeing like your worldview just completely opens. Like the different things that we would think as Americans are strange or weird, they're not. They might be weird to us, but they're normal there. And
Right.
so I guess just your worldview is so expanded, and you become more burdened, I think, for the world because of the people that you meet in another country. It just opens your eyes so much. I think that part I've just loved, really.
That's pretty neat. What about you?
I would say, especially being on the field, is being able to share the gospel with people for the first time. I mean, while in Turkey, almost everyone I talked to had never had anyone share the gospel. They never met a true Christian before.
Wow.
And so it's just an amazing opportunity because, you living in the United States your whole life, or, growing up here, you think, oh, well, everyone's heard at some point. But then when you actually get to the field and you start talking to people who've never been to church, they've never read the Bible, they've never heard a clear gospel presentation, it's exciting to be the first person to take the gospel to some people, and they never get a chance to hear. And as Sarah said, deputation, it was amazing. While on deputation, you travel and seeing people of like faith, and God's still working, God's still moving, in churches and things like that. But really now, just being able to go, and as we're preparing to go back here in a few weeks, to be able to go back and share the gospel, share the life-changing news to people who've never heard it before.
That has to be really cool to tell somebody about Jesus. I remember going to Vision a couple times, and Austin Teal would say something, and he would tell a story about how he went to China, right?
Right. It was.
And then he would say, do you know Jesus? And they say, what is a Jesus? And
Exactly.
do you have that kind of response when people don't really know what you're talking about?
So, I mean, the thing about Turkey is they're 99% Muslim, so they know they know who Jesus is. To them, Jesus is a prophet. He was a prophet, but they don't believe that he died or that he rose again. And so, at first they might understand who Jesus is, but then you begin to share who he really is and what he really did according to the Bible, and they begin to open their mind and say, I've never heard this before. No one's ever told me that Jesus died. No one ever told me that Jesus loved me. No one ever told me this. And it's just amazing to see the opportunities I've had to share the gospel with people for the first time. And a lot of times it leads to more questions. You would say, well, you're in a majority Muslim country. They got to be argumentative. Most of the people were more, they had their side that they believed, but they would still be very kind and very listening and have questions and be like, so what does the Bible say about that? Or, but it was amazing. Wow. We're excited to get back, though, because there's just so many people who've never heard there.
That's got to be really cool. So Brian Young asked, and this is my son, all right, what's the biggest goal you want to accomplish in the next few years? Brady, I'll start with you.
I think really, one, just making sure we get even stronger in the Turkish language, because as I tell people, the learning the language is the most vital part when you get there. We've learned it, but we still got to keep growing, because if we're not able to speak well, people aren't going to want to listen. But really is getting a church started. Our plan is to go back, start a church. Really seeing some Turkish men raised up and saved, that we can take and train those men and turn them around to plant multiple churches there. And people say, well, where are you going to start a church? I said, well, we're planning to start one, but as soon as we can get another guy trained, we want to start multiples, because you could put a pin anywhere in Turkey and anywhere in the city of Izmir we're at, and there's just a need. There's nothing there people have never heard before, and there's open doors. And so our plan is to start first church when we get back, and Lord willing, see some young men raised up that we can train, and then Lord willing, in the next 3 or 4 years, see multiple churches started.
What about you? Well, I guess you would be the same with him, or?
Really, probably just like the main thing for me would be the language, just getting better at that.
How are you doing with the language?
I feel like we're doing pretty good. Like we can go out and do things on our own. We don't have to ask for help most of the time, like unless it's something very, very, very confusing that we've never heard of before. But I feel like we're doing pretty good. Like I think we can accomplish things by ourselves, which is great, because when we first got there, we couldn't say anything. Like we would make the most silly mistakes ever, because we'd just think one word meant something and we'd say it and they'd just look at you like, no, that's not right.
Well, last week we had Josh and Megan Sullivan, and they were talking about language school and how she, in the United States, she would always say, man, that's crazy. That's crazy. Or you're so crazy, or something like that. And she went and told her helper that whatever she thought the word meant for crazy was, well, it meant like you're like need to be institutionalized. And so it kind of, have you had that kind of experience where you said the wrong Turkish word and people are like, what did you just say?
I've had several with that. I'm being out and about, and one really that stands out. So in Turkish, there are three words that are important. Well, two are very important, especially as Christian. You got heaven, hell, and then murder. And in Turkish, they're all very, very close. They're all very similar. They all are. So heaven is Cennet, hell is Jehannam, and murder is Cinayet. So they're really close, really, really close. Well, one day I was talking and sharing the gospel with people, and I began to mix. I would say instead of heaven, I was saying hell. And then I was saying murder instead of, and it just got really confusing. And I kept going for a minute or two, and the guy I was talking with looked really, really confused. And he started laughing, and he's like, I think you don't mean what you're saying. And I said, what did I say? And I was like, oh, no, that's no. And so I had to fix that. But that was probably one of the funniest ones where I just got them all mixed up. And it still happened occasionally. This was early on in language learning, so I was sharing Bible verses and talking very simple, but a couple times I'd get mixed up, and this one, my friend, older gentleman, he'd always laugh at me and be like, that's not what you're saying.
You got to be careful, I guess. That's hilarious. I can't hardly speak the English language, so I can imagine learning another one. Anna Young asked again, this is my sister-in-law, she said, what age were you when you both accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior? I'll start with you.
I was 12 years old.
12 years old.
I was 8, so I grew up in a Christian home and made a profession when I was 6, but then, I just did it because that's what I thought was supposed to do. But when I was 8, God began to really work on my heart that I was a sinner, and I knew I was lost, and I remember it was Mother's Day. My dad took the Bible, and he shared the gospel with me, accepted Christ that day, trusted Jesus died, and him alone.
Praise the Lord. Amen. Robert Lovelace asked, is it hard to build the trust of locals?
I think sometimes it can be. It depends on what they are. As an American, when you go there, sometimes people are like, oh, American. But what I found very interesting is there's a different mindset. So when they see me, I don't look Turkish at all. According to them, my face, some of them say I look Turkish. But I'm tall. I'm 6'4". I stand out in a crowd anywhere I go. So in Turkey, I stand out. And
so you're like Saul. You're like a head and shoulders above everybody else.
Exactly. So people assume when they see me, tourist.
Gotcha.
But what breaks it down, and what is, like I said, is very important, is when I begin speaking the language, there's just a facial change and an excitement. And it's when you know the language, that trust comes way easier. So at first, when I was first trying to learn language, could barely speak, people were just kind of like, I don't know about this guy. But as they saw me just keep trying and trying, it just broke down the walls there. And really, for the most part, anytime I start speaking Turkish to people, their expressions change, they enjoy, they laugh about it. They're like, you know Turkish? Because a lot of foreigners that are there, they don't ever learn Turkish or make the effort to learn Turkish.
Right, they're just there. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's pretty interesting. So has it been hard for you to build trust with ladies? I don't know, what's the ladies' culture like over there?
So the group of ladies that I normally hang out with and try to talk with, and we normally sit around and we drink tea and we chit-chat. It hasn't really been that hard because the group of ladies that I'm involved with are the friends of my language helper. So she started she was always coming over to my house, and then all of a sudden she switched, and she was like, why don't you come over to my house one day? So I started going over to her house, and then what's fun is you get there, and it's her mom, and they sit down and drink some tea with us, and then all of a sudden her neighbor pokes her head out the window, and she's like, come drink tea. And so her neighbor comes, and then she's like, I'm going to call my son's boyfriend or girlfriend, and his girlfriend comes over, and then the next thing you know, there's like 6 or 7 of us sitting around talking. Wow. And so it's really not been that hard. It's a lot more. I still feel nervous sometimes because I feel like my Turkish sometimes is not good enough, but I know it is. I'm just self-conscious about stuff, but they're super sweet, and I haven't really had any trouble.
Have you had any opportunities to lead any of those to the Lord?
My helper, I feel like, is very interested. She's still very on the fence about everything, and you have to get lost before you can become saved. Right. And she's not there yet. She's I do all these good things, and she thinks that because she's a good person that God's going to let her into heaven. So she's got to get past that. But I think she's very interested in Christianity. She's always asking me questions and things like that. So. And
I think you're doing it right by building the relationships first. Yeah. Because they got to trust you, and they got to know that you love them.
Yeah, I've shared the gospel with many people, and I've got a couple guys I've been working with for a while now, and they're not saved yet, but a couple of them I believe are really close. One of them, his name's Chatai, and right before I came back, a couple weeks before I came back, we sat down and had coffee, and we began talking, and I shared the gospel with him, and his question was, Brady, he asked me, he said, tell me why I should be a Christian. And it caught me off guard, because we were just talking about life, and he was trying to find a job, and all of a sudden he just asked that question. And, I got excited because it's another opportunity to share the gospel, and I was trying to get him to accept Christ right there, and he didn't come to a decision. But, you don't ask a question like that if God's not working in your heart. And so, Lord, when we go back, hopefully, I've talked to him some while here and trying to keep relationships there. So praying that God will continue working his heart. And when we go back and start the church, he'll be able to come with us to church and be able to come and get saved.
That'd be awesome. And maybe that's the guy that God's going to have you mentor and things like that. All right, folks, I need y'all to get me some questions here. I've got some other questions. What has been the weirdest thing you've had to eat? Or not had to eat, but you chose to eat. Or maybe you had to eat. I don't know. But
So I'm sure Sarah will say the same thing. There is some weird stuff, and I'm still supposed to go eat. There's a saying I've got to eat when I go back. It's intestines. It's like sheep intestines.
You have to eat it?
My friend told me we have to eat it. Right before we left, there was a big earthquake, and that day I was supposed to go with this man to get this called cockroach, and it's like intestines, but it's like seasoned, it's got bread in it. It smells really good. Every time I see it, it looks good. But he's like, I've got a shop I'll take you to. It's the best in town. I was like, I will trust you on that because you might know this better than me. So I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but when I go back. But I say the second thing really is they have this yogurt drink. Yeah. And then what you think, most people think yogurt drink, they think, animals or yogurt or sweet. Right. This is a salty yogurt drink, and it's huge. Everyone drinks it, and the first time I had it, I was there like a week. I was there with a Turkish pastor. He took me out to a meal, and we sat down, and I was fine drinking water, and he's like, no, here. And he gave it to me, and I don't like milk and stuff like that, or yogurt really in general, but I was like, well, it's put in front of me. I got to eat this. I was praying. I was like, I took a drink of it. It's not horrible, but for me, it wasn't bad. But it's different. It's not and it took a little, so now I actually could probably drink it fine, but it took me about 3 or 4 times drinking it. And really what they like to do too, so imagine it being 100 degrees and they come in there, instead of water, like, no, here, drink this iron. And the last thing I want to drink when it's 100 degrees is a yogurt, milky substance. I'm pouring sweat, but they're like, no, it'll cool you off and it'll replace the salt you've lost sweating. And I'm like, okay, if you say so. And so that's probably the most interesting thing. But there are several they have lots of interesting things there. Once we get out to the villages and stuff like that, we'll probably end up eating some more of the more unique stuff. There are some interesting things I've heard about. But
like a brain salad.
Brain salad. Yeah. See, last week, Megan and Josh said cow head soup, chicken feet, chicken heads.
There's a chicken dessert.
A chicken dessert?
There's a chicken dessert. I have not tried it yet. I've tried to avoid it as much as possible. We haven't tried it yet. It's not as popular.
Online they make it sound like it's really popular, but I never saw it in any of the restaurants I went to, and I was like, this thing's supposed to be popular. So I'm like, but they do have things like that there too. There is everyone tells me about, they have this foot soup, cow foot soup or whatever, and I'm just like, I'll try it one day, but until it's put in front of me, I'm not going to go one day. I'm not going to go out of my way to make myself try it, but if someone serves it to me, I'll make sure to eat it. But I'm not going to go down to the restaurant and be like, sure, I will take.
Well, God's just giving y'all the stomach that he didn't give me, I don't think. So we're going to move on from food because Kevin Horn, Kevin, he asked this question: have you encountered many other Christians in Izmir?
A few people. There are a few that we've met. There are a few believers. We were meeting at a church there, so there were believers among them. But outside of that, I didn't run into too many of them. Okay. Really in Turkey too, when you say Christian, in Izmir, when I said Christian, most people automatically assume Catholic or Greek Orthodox, and I had to sit and explain. They're like, so Catholic Church, or you talk about wanting to start a church, they would think big Catholic church, and you're like, no, that's not what that's not it. And so you had to kind of tell them, no, let me tell you what we believe. It was an opportunity, though, to share the gospel with people, because it's like, let me share with you why. And a lot of times in Turkish, there's not even really a word for pastor. they used the word for priest, and they kept telling me priest. I was like, no, that's not priest. Like, that's completely not what we are.
Right.
So
How are you going to overcome that? I mean, how are you going to?
So
are you going to invent a word?
So the other believers that are there would use the word just pastor, which
Okay.
similar. There is another word you could also use, just like I use Bible teacher. It's a lot easier because they don't understand pastor anyways.
Right.
And so I just say Bible teacher, and they understand that a lot better than just
Okay.
pastor or preacher. So I just say Bible teacher, and they're like, oh, okay, so you teach the Bible and
Gotcha.
things like that. So that's what I typically use when talking to people.
All right. So we're praying that more Christians are in Izmir as a result of y'all's ministry.
Yes, sir.
Do you feel hatred being in, Carol Epperson asked, do you feel hatred being in a Muslim country?
What, you answer that one first?
I don't at all. Like, everyone that we have come in contact with has been so sweet to us. Even people that are very much so more devout in Islam, they think it's neat that we're there. I don't know, everyone's just been extremely kind and accepting of us. Like, I don't think there's been an instance at all where we felt persecuted or
Right.
anything like that.
What about safety? I mean, y'all feel pretty safe there as well?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, there's not any. I mean, I feel very safe there. I mean, there's areas they tell us not to go in, but it's really funny.
Well, there's
like,
areas in America
exactly.
you don't want to go into,
What's really
right?
funny about that, though, is one of the questions when learning language is try to figure out where they think the worst area in town is. And everyone kept telling me this place, this place, this place, this place. Well, we went on our survey trip. We went to that place, not knowing. We just went there because it was
And
a
we
place.
went by ourselves.
Went by ourselves, not knowing any Turkish. And I was like, yeah, I've been there. They're like, you went?
Yeah.
Like, did you get robbed? I was like, no, just normal people. Like, we went up there,
Yeah.
we went and took
Right.
some pictures. So,
Big of a deal.
you know,
Well,
but
you are 6'4" too. I mean,
this is true.
I don't
This
know if
is true.
anybody would mess with. I mean, if I was 6'4", you know, I'd kind of make that prominent. Nobody mess with me.
But I mean, safety, there's not really an issue. I mean, and even persecution or anything, we've never really. I've not encountered anything. Now, maybe if you get more in Eastern Turkey, they're going to be more devout and
Gotcha.
more set in their ways, in the ways that they go, leaning more towards like Iran, Iraq, Syria. Their devotion to Islam is a lot stronger than it would be in Ankara, Istanbul, and Izmir.
Okay.
But again, our goal, and it'd be a little bit harder being a foreigner, but our goal is to raise up young men that we can send out there to break that culture, and they're going to know the culture better than I would ever know the culture because they're Turkish.
Right.
And so, but even then, there's ways to go out in the villages, and they still aren't going to be upset with you. You know, there's a lot of people who told me, oh yeah, you got to go out to this village and visit these people. And they're great, and so we're not concerned about safety, really. I mean, you always think about it,
Right.
conscious of it, but there's not any reason to be afraid or anything.
In fact, a lot of our friends were actually they were watching the news a lot this year and all the things that were going on here in the States.
Right.
And they were like, are you sure you want to go home? It seems a little, it doesn't seem
sure
very
it's safe
safe
in
there right
America?
now.
Yes.
You should stay here. So really.
Wow, that's pretty eye-opening right there. So Sam Yates asked a question. We've already dealt with it. Sam, yes, the Turkish people, for the most part, do trust y'all.
Yes.
I mean, but there is some building you have to do with with the Turkish people. Robert Lovelace asked, is the horse culture of Turkish still prominent?
I mean, it still is some. Yeah, there's still.
I guess that means that there's a lot of horses. I don't know.
Yeah, in years gone past, years ago, we're talking Ottoman Empire time. So they were known for their horses and stuff like that. And there still are horses and stuff. It's more again towards villages and stuff like that. But yeah, there's still some. It's really interesting. I saw not far from where you live one day, just a horse tied up, just
Ground
tied
tied.
up on ground, tied
Yeah.
to the ground. No,
Really?
no house, no one owned it. Someone from the villages. But there's also people who come in from the villages in on horseback, bringing
Okay.
their goods and stuff like that. So we were like when we first got there in language school one day, where I was walking down the road, and all of a sudden this horse and cart just comes walking up the street, and I'm just like, we're in the middle of a city, like, where did this come from?
Oh, that's funny there. So Judy Blakely asked, and I'll go back to Anna's question in a minute, but Judy Blakely asked a very good question. Have you had to use the healthcare system, and if so, how is it different from our system?
So I actually had to. Back last February, March, I got really sick, possibly corona, not sure. But, so we're not sure, but I got really sick, very similar symptoms to COVID. But that was, Turkey hadn't had a reported case. And I'm stubborn. I didn't want to go to the doctor. And I was like, this is a whole new thing.
Yeah.
This is a whole new set of language skills I've never used before. Like, I got to figure out what they're saying. So I found a place. So in Turkey, they have public and private hospitals. Public are, for most normal people, you can go in. They're not going to have as good of system. The private hospital is a little bit nicer. And so I had found a private hospital that was supposed to be, they said had people there that could possibly help you. Because I was like, worst case scenario, I get there and I'm not understanding or we can't communicate.
Right.
Went there and it was very simple, very easy. I gave them my information. We have to have insurance to live in Turkey, Turkish health insurance. It doesn't cover everything, but it's required. They took the information, plugged it into their system. They said, okay, we'll take you to the back. They ran their test on me. They didn't do. I asked the doctor. The doctor's like, yeah, you've got an infection in your lungs. Here's some medicines. Go. And that was about it. I mean, I even asked him, I said, so I know this new virus, Corona, is out. I said, I haven't traveled outside the country, but should we test? He's like, there's no Corona in Turkey yet. Don't worry about it. You're fine. So I said, okay. And so the system there is very good. I mean, I don't even remember. It was like, I had an x-ray, had all this stuff done, and it was probably...
It was less than $130, I think.
I think it was like 10 or 15 US dollars total that I paid. And then went to go to prescriptions. Now so like here in the States, a lot of people, you've got Walgreens, but you also have Walmart and stuff like that. In Turkey, if you need a prescription, you actually have to go to a pharmacy. A place that is just a pharmacy. No
Walmarts in Turkey?
No Walmarts, but they have a Migros, which is very similar. Gotcha. They have different tiers of Migros, which can be up to like a Walmart Supercenter-like. So, but
you actually have to go find somebody mixing this.
Yeah, the pharmacies. They're everywhere, but this thing, when I went, I was very sick, and it was a Sunday, and so most pharmacies are closed Sunday, but they have emergency pharmacies open in certain areas, so you need medicine. So that's what I did, went and got the medicine. So the healthcare, though, people travel from all around the world to go get procedures done in Turkey because it's cheap, and they're world-renowned for their healthcare stuff. So people travel there to get different surgeries, operations done.
They have a medical tourism system going on.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow. So good medical system.
Yes.
That was a really good question. Yeah. Anna Young asked, what's your favorite Bible verse?
Mine? Psalms 19:14. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. And
what age did that become your favorite verse?
That's a good question. I actually was asked this question like 2 weeks ago, and that's the reason why it was a little bit easier for me to answer it. Because when I was 12 and 13, to be perfectly honest, I had a really hard time with my mouth, like controlling my thought process, things like that, and I would argue really easily, and I was always talking and getting in trouble for it. And so I was reading my Bible one day and came across that passage, and I was like, wow, I'm not doing a good job of this. So I kind of adopted that Bible verse as my verse, and so it's kind of just helped me a lot, really.
That's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one. What about you there?
Mine right now is 2 Corinthians 4, verse 3. It says, if our gospel be hid, it's hid to them that are lost. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago, that really became a sticking point in my heart when I read that verse. And it's just like realizing that if I don't share the gospel, if I don't share that I'm a Christian, I'm hiding it, not from other Christians, but from people who are lost and on their way to hell. And so, I think everyone can have life verses, but sometimes in my life, I think that's the third life verse I've had, really. It just changes where you're going. Sure. And God works in your heart, and you keep a verse for a long period of time, maybe, or you keep it for your whole life. But I've still got other verses, but that to me right now has really been the past 6 years. Really, we even say really that's kind of our truth to Turkey. That's kind of our ministry verse, because that's our heart, is that we're going to Turkey and we can't go hiding that we're Christians. We're there to boldly proclaim the gospel, because if not, the 80+ million people in Turkey are going to die and go to hell.
Wow, that's a good verse. That gives a lot to think about. Michael Turner asked, what advice would you give somebody who felt that God may be leading them to become a foreign missionary? And if you want to give a plug in for the summit right here, that'd be a good one too.
Yes, that's a great one. So, come on down to the summit.
There you go, yes.
I think it's December 28th to 30th.
Yes.
Anyone's welcome to come. Well, we're looking for young people, but anyone can come, and you'll get a chance to come and talk to other missionaries that are going all over the world, and we've got guys that have been there that God's really blessed. They've got multiple churches going, things along those lines. get to hear great preaching on focus on missions. I would say too, though, here's some other things. I would say one, if you're God's working hard on missions, always I would get involved where you're at, because if you're not willing to get involved now, what's going to change in a year or two when you step out? So get involved right now in your church and with people and get involved. But on top of that, I would get in contact with other missionaries, talk to them. As a missionary, I love talking to young people or anyone that's interested in missions. I had a couple people throughout time send me emails and say, hey, I'm interested in missions. I'd love to talk to you, and I'm able to sit and talk with them. We enjoy talking to people about missions. But I also say another thing, go on a missions trip.
Yes.
There's nothing greater than going on a missions trip in your life and really being able to see the foreign field. I didn't, as a young person, I went to a United States missions trip. It was a little different, but I didn't go to the foreign field until I was in college. But when I finally got out of the United States, it changed my whole mindset, and God really began to work. But if you go on a missions trip, you're able just to see the work that's going on and see what God's doing. You can come to Turkey, you can come. If you go, we have a list at Vision Missions. You can pick about any country that we have people in, and I would highly recommend going on a missions trip. And then, depending on where you're at in the age group, if you're finished with high school or you're about to finish, I would look at coming down to the Our Generation Training Center. I highly recommend them to people, because I always tell people this: they're kind of like the Navy SEALs of missions training. They're gonna get you in there, and it's gonna work. It's not easy. It's not just because everyone thinks, oh, it's 2 years of school, it's easy. No, it's not easy. They're gonna work you hard, but they're gonna teach you. Not just teach you, they're gonna pour their lives into you, and they're gonna help you. And you can get started and get trained and then jump on the mission. We've got young guys that are 19, 20, 21 that are on deputation, and by the time they're 22, 23, they could be on a field. And I'm almost 33, and I look back and it's like, if I had a place like that to go when I was graduating high school, it would have been great. I went there for a year, did a year of intern training, and that 1 year helped us with deputation. And what's great too, I always tell people this about the Our Generation Center, the training never stops. They're always teaching you. They're always there around while you're on deputation, when you get to the field, when you come back on furlough, when you go back to the field. You're always learning. You're always having people that are willing to talk to you and pour their life into you.
That's one thing I heard when I was at Vision. Well, I guess one big complaint that missionaries have is a lot of pastors won't let them talk to the young people, or they have trouble talking to the young people. Do y'all find that to be true? Because, man, you can have my young people. You can talk to them. I'll put them in a room with you, and we'll lock the door, whatever. But one thing about Our Generation Training Center that might get some guys there, from what I hear, from what people have told me there, that there's a lot of girls there now, and they need husbands.
Yeah, recently they've had an influx of ladies.
There's new ones coming down this spring too.
So
if
there's a guy listening, and you're really saying, well, how do I go to Our Generation Training Center?
There you go.
They got tons of women there,
sweet
right?
girls.
But I know that's why they're not going there to do that. But it's a good plug for.
No, but I mean, many of the young people that have gone there that are on deputation now, they met their spouses there.
Well, I think of Nate and Emily.
Exactly.
I mean, they met there.
Yeah, they met. I mean, I go through the list of all the young guys that came through, and
Almost
all of these guys met. Like, they came down there, they got
Austin
involved.
Cook, did he get?
Yes, I think so. Well,
Austin Cook, yes, some of these
and
guys.
Stephen and Leslie Carrier.
Okay, yeah, and he's right in Johnson City. So
there's tons of them. We got Graham Young.
Graham and Olivia Young.
Yeah, that's true.
So this is
so many.
So guys or girls, you can find your spouse there at Our Generation Training Center. You say, well, everything else has failed. I'll go to Our Generation Training Center, right? So moving on, Alyssa Henry asked, what's the educational system like there? Have y'all had a chance to? I know you're a former school teacher.
So I haven't had a chance to really get into it, but I have been able to ask a few questions. It's a little bit different than our system in the fact that when they get ready to go from like junior high into high school, and they have these really large exams, extremely large exams, and they're very, very, very important. And basically the whole city, I'm sure probably countrywide too, they take the exams on the exact same day. Really? If they do not pass the exam with a certain amount of points, they cannot go into like junior high, or they can't go into high school, or they can't apply for college, things like that. So they're very, very strict on their education system as far as things like that. Wow. And then as far as the elementary grades, most of the time the kids don't really start school until they're closer to 6 years old. And then for like sorry, I'm thinking of the Turkish word, the preschool system and everything like that, they typically don't start accepting children until they're at least 2. So you can't send your child to daycare if they're a baby and you go to work. You have to find a nanny or somebody like that to take care of your child.
Education's big with them.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's become, and even more so recently,
Wow.
a lot of the people young people I talk to, their desire is to get a good education so they
Right.
can get a good job. A lot of them, they want to get a good education so they can work outside of Turkey, so they can earn better money than what they can in Turkey. A lot of young guys I've worked with or talked to, that's their goal. But yeah, she said those tests are really important. Part of it is, one, that they won't let you go forward, but also the better you do on the test, you might get private schools, which are more focused. Maybe you want to do something with computers or want to do something engineering or whatever. There's certain schools that are private that are more expensive and some parents can't afford that.
Right.
But if you do really well on the test,
get
hey, we've got a scholarship. We want you to come be a part of our school.
And along with that too is they will stay at home with their parents as they go attend university and things like that. And if they don't, like, as long as they're in their home with their parents, it's the same mindset, I guess, to a certain extent that we have, is that they're under their parents' thumb. So you've got 21-year-old men that are still living at home with their parents because they're on university right now. And so they feel like they can't do anything without asking permission of their parents because their parents are. So that end of that has a little bit of effect on me.
It's really neat. I mean, that's good that they emphasize education so much over there. Robert Lovelace asked, is free travel inside the country capable? I guess, can you go inside the country, like,
Free travel.
not like it's free, like,
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, I mean,
like
once.
you can open to go anywhere you want to
Yeah,
go.
for the most part, I mean, there are a couple places as Americans or even other countries' citizens that they tell, like towards Syria, they say, hey, you probably shouldn't go in this area
Right.
because of terrorists and different things, or even refugees and stuff like that that are
Gotcha.
in that area. But for the most part, yeah, we can go just about anywhere in the country of Turkey. With our visa, we have a travel visa or a tourist visa, so we can go anywhere. We've done some traveling. We didn't get a lot in because, we had plans. I had plans to travel multiple parts of the country, go out a little more east to some of the bigger cities out east. But then COVID happened, and with everyone this year, kind of changed a lot of everybody's plans.
Yeah.
So
That's true. Sam Yates asked, and you've already answered his question, but answer it again for just briefly. Do you have a church in Turkey? You can tell him your plans.
So we had a kind of a church we had gone to, but we don't. While we were there, while we were learning the language, it was in Turkish. We were going just because we needed a place to be a part of,
Right.
to learn Turkish while we were learning and things like that. But our plan is we're headed back, and we'll start our first church there. We go back, Lord willing, February 3rd. We've got to get our visas renewed. But while we're working on getting visa renewed, I'm going to be looking for a building for us to rent to start our church in. We'll probably, as soon as I can get a building, we'll start having Bible studies and stuff like that. My plan is to do a big launch by Easter, which is like the first Sunday in April. So we want to have like our first big launch service like that Sunday. We're
Right.
doing things up before then, obviously, every Sunday,
Right.
things like that. But make the big service, the big push for that Easter, because what a great time to have people come and be like, hey, come learn about Easter, Resurrection Sunday. And we want to try to get our church started as quickly as possible because there's really very little gospel light there.
Right.
I would ask people to pray too for two things. One, for our visa, we won't have any issue with that. But two, that we can find a building, because we were looking a little before we came back. I was looking pretty regularly, but sometimes people don't want to rent to foreigners. They have this fear of you just leaving the country. But then also sometimes if you're renting a church or they find out you're doing church stuff, they're kind of like, I don't know if I really want to rent to you. So there's lots of buildings available. It's just finding the right one that will give us the permission and it'll be the right location. Just pray when we go back we can find that building quickly so we can get started on everything.
I know God's got that under control, and he'll open that right up. So Kevin Horn asked, I believe it's Kevin, he wants to know about the missions trip next summer, dates, cost, etc. Because this one, I'm telling you, I've told our people about it, and so I know it's through Vision, and the website will be up on the screen.
Yeah, so
but tell us about it.
I'm really excited. We call it the Realign the Candles Tour. Because of that, if you read in Revelation, the 7 churches of Revelation, it says that there was a light there, and God was going to take their candle and put it out if they didn't stay. Well, these 7 cities, most of them are ruins, and there's no churches in those areas. So we're going to go and have the opportunity. It is June 13th through 21st. Pretty sure on those dates, June 13th, 21st, it's like a Sunday. I think it's leave on a Sunday, come back on a Monday kind of thing. Again, those dates are semi-flexible by a day or two, just depending on tickets and stuff like that. But we're looking forward to having people come over there. I think we have the approximate cost at like $2,200. That depends on what your ticket price costs. It could be cheap right now. Tickets could be possibly cheap. I haven't actually looked at tickets back to Turkey or what it costs round trip, but I know last year they were for the summer were between $800 to $1,000, and then it could be a little bit more. Just depends on different things with that, but it also depends on how many people come on the trip. The price could go up or down depending on, because we got the rooms and stuff like that. But I'm excited about it because you'll get to go see the 7 churches of Revelation.
That's awesome.
You also get to spend about a day and a half in Istanbul, so you'll get to see the largest city there in Turkey, Istanbul. We'll go around, see some of the sites there, but also see some of the city, see the need there. We'll be spending time in Izmir. What's really great this year, we were trying to do it last year, but obviously we didn't have church plant. But this year you'll be able to be a part of a new church plant. So that Sunday you'll be a part of our church there and be able to be in that church and hopefully take part in some things as we have church services going on and stuff like that. And then we'll travel around throughout the week and see the different churches, the cities that are there. Izmir is one of them. That's where we're at. Ephesus is my favorite. It's still one of my favorites. It's the closest one to us. I've been there 3 times. I love going there. Everyone's like, aren't you tired of going there? You've seen it like 3 times. It's like, no, it's amazing to see what, the ruins and stuff. You get to see all these different cities. And then along the way, there might be 1 or 2 other Bible cities that are nearby. We might be able to hop over and see real quick.
Right.
I think so one of the 7 churches was Laodicea. Well, not far from Laodicea is the ruins of Colossae. So we'll be able to possibly go see those and things along those lines. So it's be a chance to go visit and see these ruins, but also not just see the ruins and see the history, but we're going to talk about what the Bible says about them, but also get a chance to see because all of these places, although they're ruins, there's cities nearby there without a church.
Right.
And we'll spend time praying for these places and praying for God to raise up men and laborers to go and plant churches in these cities.
That sounds ever. So June, and y'all can go on that. I've got the, y'all can see the Vision Baptist, visionmissions.org/missions trip. Go on there, check it out, and they can, I guess, get in contact with Vision if they want to go.
Also, if they want to go, they can actually go directly to our website too, with a little more information, truthtoturkey.com/missions trip. Or if it's Truth to Turkey, if you go to the homepage, there'll be on the top, there's like a couple of things. One says missions trip. If you click on that, it has a little more information. Actually, even it has, if you're interested, if you fill out the form on there, it'll come directly to me. And I think right now, up until the beginning of the year, there's a waived discount fee or whatever, because we're trying to get people interested in it. So it's I think there's like a registration fee or whatever that gets waived because if you go ahead and sign up before.
Truth to Turkey. That's truth, T-O, turkey.com. Not the number 2, but 2, turkey.com. Check that out. Michael Turner asked again, he said, you touched on this briefly, but what are some specific needs that you all need in your ministry, and even in your personal life? What are some needs ministry-wise and maybe personal that our church could be praying for?
You probably. I think you probably answer that better than I would right now.
I think the biggest prayer is twofold. One, that we can get a 2-year visa.
Okay, because you're still on the tourist visa.
Tourist visa, our goal is to go back again on another tourist visa, but then after that, we're going to try to work over the next 2 years trying to get a business visa. There's a way we can do it. It will be a little more secure than just a tourist visa. Because a tourist visa, they can say at any time, well, sorry, they've done it before to people. Right. So we're just praying we can get the 2 years, because normally we only give 1 year. But we're going to do it. Last time we were there, we stepped out in faith and did everything we were supposed to get 2 years. Everyone told us, no, you're never going to get 2 years. I said, we're just trusting God. And God gave us 2 years. And we walked in and walked out with a 2-year visa. And the guy that was helping us, he's like, I've never seen him give 2-year visas before to people in the last couple of years. I was like, I was just trusting God. I was like,
man, this is impossible, right?
So we're just praying that, one, especially we can get that visa renewed. Sure. No problems, no issues. It'll be real simple. Secondly, just be praying for we can find the building. We're going to have to get everything. We're starting a new church, so you think about it. Most churches you go to, you don't think about it, but you come into a church, they've already got the pew set up, they got the lights, they've got everything. We're starting from scratch, so we're going to find a building. More than likely, we're going to have to paint the building, do some possible repairs on the building, get things set up for our church, get chairs for the meeting, get tables, Bibles. I don't, actually we have Bibles, we have some Bibles, but probably get some more material, literatures printed. I mean, we're going to be passing out lots of flyers. I'm working on some of that stuff right now, getting flyers for like different sessions we're going to be doing, like to get people interested, also tracks and things like that. And so that's all involved in getting the church started and stuff like that. Thankfully, people have been giving over the several years in support. We've been able to save up towards stuff like that. But long-term goal is as soon as we can, big prayer request is eventually we want to buy a building as soon as, we get this started. And Lord willing, within 6 months to a year, we can get our own building, because it just makes it so much easier when you have something, especially in Turkey. Renting isn't horrible, but when you own, you're in control of everything. Right. You don't have to worry about someone saying, I'm sorry, you're a church, we don't want you here anymore. So, but really, we're starting everything from scratch, and so that's really, that's a big thing there. It's going to be exciting to do. We're excited about it, but there's just a lot involved in that. People don't, realize, think about it, there's all the hardest things to get done. So,
So y'all be praying for that he'll have the building, and then, and that you can buy it in your visa stuff, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
Judy Blakely asked, have you experienced any strong resistance to your work? I think you've already answered this, and if so, what was it?
Never had any strong resistance or anything that was people were upset. I have one gentleman who, he was an owner of, I'll tell the story because I love this story, but he's the owner of the butcher shop, and this butcher shop I used to hang out with a couple hours every day just practicing Turkish with him. And I hadn't met him before, but then one day he was just there, and he's began to talk to me, and the guy who's like my grandpa there, he was kind of like, hey, this is Brady, he's been coming here every day, he's a Christian. Well, this guy's a pretty devout Muslim. When he can, he goes to the mosque, he knows the Quran very well, and he was probably the most argumentative person I met, as in every time I would share something, he would be like, no, the Bible isn't true, or the Bible's changed, or... But one time I was sitting there with him, and I'd seen him multiple times. One day I came in, and he said, hey, sit down. I was like, okay. I was like, well, what's going on? And he called his imam, his Muslim teacher, to come to convince me to be a Muslim.
Oh, wow.
And because he wants me to be a Muslim because he's afraid that if I don't accept all the prophets when I die, I won't get to go to heaven.
Right.
And he's concerned about my eternal destination, whereas I'm just as concerned about his eternal destination. It's a great conversation we've had. This man, and right before I left, like the day before I left, he pulled me into he owns 2 shops, so he has a restaurant and a butcher shop, and he pulled me in the restaurant, and we sat down and he talked, and he's like, are you going to accept Islam? Are you going to accept all the prophets? I said, I believe I believe Jesus, all the prophets are in the Bible. I was like, well, he's like, do you believe Muhammad? I said, no, I don't believe he was a prophet. I said, he was a man. I was like, he lived? I was like, but he's like, but no. And I said, no. I said, but I'm concerned for your soul. Right. Because if you die without Christ, you're going to be eternally in hell. He's like, I think I'm okay. I was like, but he's probably the most, he even wasn't even mean. He was always nice and caring, and he was concerned for me, and that shocked me. It broke my heart when I saw him and the imam both concerned for me. But I'm just as concerned for them, and I'm praying that God will use some of the seeds I was able to plant with talking to the imam, just sharing the gospel with him a little bit, that God will eventually use both of those men and they'll get saved. Because if they're that passionate about Islam, a religion that's not alive, not exciting, how more exciting would they get if they got saved and became a Christian? God could really use them.
Wow. That y'all be praying for that the Lord will open up those doors. Robert Lovelace asked, is there remaining Christian influence or culture from the early church? I think you've hit on this briefly.
Very, very little anymore, because what happened, people wonder, a lot of that's there. So people wonder what happened, because Turkey became the center of Christianity because you had Jerusalem, but then Antioch is in Turkey, so it's barely in Turkey. People are like, oh, it's not in Turkey. It's like right there, it's in Turkey. Antioch, and then Paul did most of his ministry throughout Turkey, and it became a hub and a center of Christianity. When the Ottoman Empire came in, and the Ottoman Empire, they didn't destroy Muslims or Christians or whatever, but they had ways of dealing with it. They taxed them higher. On top of that, they took their sons and they took any of their kids, any of their sons, and put them in the army of the king, and made them like elite soldiers. But they got like Muslim training at an early age, so they pulled them away from Christianity. And so eventually, a lot of Christians just kind of left. They left the area because it's just getting too hard to live. And so there's very, very little Christian influence left. Now there's places you'll go where they'll have a sign that talks about, this is the place, of where this, not church, but like you see signs of the old stuff, but there's not a lot of.
That's interesting that you mentioned Antioch in Turkey. I didn't know that. But Christians were first called Christians in Antioch, right?
Yes, sir.
And now to think that that influence has gone is somewhat sad. I mean, it really breaks your heart that where it all started and why the term Christians, that term's not used anymore, and people don't know Jesus. I mean, how did we get to a place that was producing missionaries, Paul and all these, to nothing? You know, and I know that's why y'all are there, but that's just heartbreaking to think about.
It breaks my heart to see it, to know where they came from.
Right.
But at the same time, it excites me because if God did it once
He can
in
do
the
it
same
again.
area,
Sure.
He can do it again. People say, but back then, I was like, it was just as hard back then. It was a brand new thing.
Right.
No, I mean, it had just happened a few years before Jesus dying on the cross, and back then, where Islam is just as strong as there was all kinds of other false religions
Right.
and things like that. But I believe God has some open doors in Turkey right now because I think people in Turkey have been hurting. There have been earthquakes there recently in the last few years. There have been a lot of stuff going on. And we talk to people, they're just hurting, and they're looking for answers. They're not finding it in Islam.
Sure.
And we have the Word of God that has all the answers they need. And so we're excited to get back, though, because we just meet these people who need Jesus.
Right.
And a lot of them are interested. You know, like I said, they're interested to hear the gospel. They're interested about Bible things, you know, because they know some of it. As Islam, if you're taught Islam, a lot of it there's overlapping in it. There's a lot of false teaching, but there's also a lot of overlapping of some of the stories and the Bible stories and things like that. And so you've been talking about these things, and it's interesting how they'll bring up Bible characters. And it's sometimes interesting though when some of the changes that have been made in the Quran compared to the Bible, because they're telling you a story about somebody, you're like, wait, you said that? I was like, no, that's not what happened in the Bible. I was like, where did you get that? Like, oh, that's what I thought I heard. Like my language teacher, he had all kinds of questions about the Bible. He's like, didn't this happen in the Bible? He had questions about like Joseph. We talked about Joseph one day. We talked about Noah one day. He had these questions of things that he thought he knew. Right. But I began to explain the Bible. It's like, no, actually that didn't happen. Let's show you the Bible. This is what happened. We would read and practice Turkish that way. And that's
pretty amazing. It sounds like God's just opened up doors. Robert Lovelace asks, is financial operations the same as here as far as tax exemption for church operations?
That I actually do not know. So in Turkey, there. Okay,
good question.
Okay,
Good question.
So in Turkey, there is so you can actually have like a legally recognized church, but not considered. They call it an association.
Gotcha.
So there are still like taxes that are required of the association. Now there's like another step up you can go that gets you out of that tax bracket, but you have to have so many members and so many.
Gotcha.
It's a little bit more work. So our goal is to start our church, and then when we have to have 7 people. So we're trying to find, with my wife, myself, the Brown family, Dustin and Ashley, when they come, that's 4. We just need 3 more faithful members. We can start the foundation or the association, and then Lord willing, from that, we can grow it into the next step up and things like that. And so that would be our plan. So there's a little bit of tax there, but I mean, because in Turkey they do recognize there are churches and stuff like that, but what we're doing is a little different because we have to go a little bit different in a sense of we're going there. We're eventually want to have the association status because it gives us more security of being there and having a building and having things like that. But at first, we're just kind of going and starting a Bible study because we got to have people to start the association.
Sure,
so.
absolutely. And how close is Dustin Brown? Dustin, right?
Dustin.
How close are they to getting out there to help you?
They have bought their tickets to come in July. I can't remember the dates exactly. The first part of July 6th. So.
Wow.
I think they're over the 60% mark, so they're just trying to get the last bit of their support raised, their setup fund, and then they'll be coming over there in July. So it's going to be, when we get back in February, it's going to be a really exciting.
Wow, y'all are going to hit the ground
Oh,
running.
it's
gonna be busy here.
we're very busy for a while,
Wow.
but we're excited about it because we've got everything from getting visas renewed, starting a church, the missions trip. Then right after the mission trip, we got about a week where we get to breathe for a second. And they come there and we'll help them. And we'll get them set up for a little bit, and then.
Wow.
After this year, though, we're looking forward to busy.
Well, yeah. Everything's kind of been shut down this week. So if you're watching on Facebook, you can see that Brother Michael's put up thetruthtoturkey.com in the comment section. So make sure you go on there and visit their website. Nobody else has any questions that I can see. Can you read like a familiar passage in Turkish? Can you do that for us?
I mean, I can share a verse. I have a verse memorized, or if you want me to read.
Yeah, I mean,
a
if you
couple
got
verses,
it.
or,
No,
I mean, I have a verse. I do this verse. I can do
give
that.
me a verse in Turkish, and don't tell me the reference. Let's see if we can figure it out. Okay.
Okay. It is the verse I want.
Well, you
to
can tell me the reference.
I can't tell you the reference because it's very close.
Okay, all right.
Because it's close. It's close enough that you would know. Like,
Okay.
so that's the thing about Turkish. A lot of the Bible
The references.
and names are very, very close, which made it a little bit easier.
Before you do that, in the comment section, all right, we're going to see who's closest here. Let's see if you know the place that he's going to refer to, okay? Don't give me John 3:16, okay?
All right, I'm going to do two. I'm going to do a really easy one first.
Okay, really easy one. Jesus wept. No, just kidding.
You just ruined it. That's what I was going to do.
Was it?
Isa Alida. It's very simple. So, see, the reason I memorized that one, so
Okay, well, that one doesn't count.
Yeah, that one doesn't count. Pastor Gardner, every time guys come back, he has them quote verses.
Right.
I was like, I'm going to do. No one ever done it as a joke. Everyone does John 3:16, and I'm like,
Right.
I'm going to do
wept.
Jesus wept. It's the easiest
That's
verse.
good.
I've got it right there.
Tell me Jesus wept again.
Isa Alida. So Jesus is Isa, and then Alamak means to cry or to weep.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Isa Alida.
Isa Alida.
Alida.
Alida. Isa Alida. All right. Y'all get that one for free. Okay. Now you know what Isa and Alida is. So
All right,
give me the
ready?
next one.
All right. Yardımız müjde, ortalıkta mavlanlar için ortalıdır.
Wow. Can we get a slow motion on that one?
So yardımız müjde, ortalıkta mavlanlar için ortalıdır.
All right. I have no guess, but we're going to wait for people to get comments. Sometimes it's a little delayed. But give me the first part of that verse again.
So it says yardımız müjde.
Because it sounds really familiar. I'm going to take a stab.
Can I give you a little bit of a hint there?
No.
No, not a hint of where it is.
Okay.
But I'll teach you what one of the words is, because when
Teach
we go
me.
back, we're starting our church. Our church is going to be called Müjde Baptist Kilisesi, which is Gospel
Müjde.
Baptist Church.
Okay.
So yardımız müjde. So
Müjde
is gospel.
is gospel.
So
Romans 1:16.
no.
Okay. Someone said Psalm 23. No.
That's
No,
not-
I was thinking, my gut is telling me Romans 5:8,
No.
6:23,
No.
3:23.
It's
Not in
probably
Romans.
not quite that popular.
What's
Most
that?
people wouldn't know this. Yeah, this is.
It's not a popular one.
Not a popular
Why'd
that
you-
most people.
What, you
Because it's
didn't
a
pick
verse that's
popular
important to
one?
me.
I got you. Well, that makes sense then.
I mean, if people were listening earlier, they could easily guess this one. There was a question asked.
What?
There was a question asked earlier.
Oh, your favorite Bible verse. What was the reference to that? Rewind.
Pop quiz.
What?
You want a popular one?
Okay. All right, y'all keep guessing because he's giving y'all he's giving y'all the hint there. So if y'all remember what he said, you get absolutely nothing for it. You get recognition to say that you were listening. Okay. Can you quote anything in Turkish?
I'll give you a more popular one. Çünkü herkes günah işledi ve Tanrı'nın yüceliğinden yoksun kaldı.
John 3:16. No, that was too popular.
No, it's too
Okay.
popular.
Someone says John 1:1 on yours. They wasn't listening. John 3:15 because it was Thessalonians if I'm thinking right. No, Galatians,
Not Galatians.
Ephesians.
No.
It's in the New Testament, right?
It's the New Testament.
All right,
It is in the New Testament.
we got-
so.
Okay, give me that one again, Miss Sarah.
Çünkü herkes günah işledi ve Tanrı'nın yüceliğinden yoksun kaldı.
Wow. So this is a good point to make. I'm glad to know that I've got the Bible in my language,
Yeah.
right?
Amen. Very important.
Because, when I was in South Africa and they were speaking that Xhosa stuff,
Good job.
when they were doing that, I sat in there, I'm like, what are they saying? And I know that's probably the same way y'all were when you went to service learning.
100%.
It was a while. I mean, even still sometimes when people, because in Turkish, people get going like fast.
Really?
And sometimes I'll sit there and I'll be like, hold on, slow down just a second. Like, let me catch you. And then what gets me sometimes in Turkish is when I first started learning Turkish, my biggest thing is there's a lot of nouns. So a lot of nouns in Turkish that are actual like people's names. And so I'm listening and I'm trying to figure out what they're saying. What is this word? And I'll write the word down. I'll be like, what is this? And they're like, that's a name. And I'm like,
The other problem is that the verb's at the end of the sentence, so you got to figure out all this stuff before you get to the verb.
Sort of like Spanish,
Like,
I
what's
guess,
going
huh?
on?
That's crazy. So someone says Matthew 28:19?
Nope.
For either one of y'all? Philippians 5:10.
Philippians 5:10. Philippians only has 4 books, 4 chapters.
Come on, Anna. That's my sister-in-law.
Like, now I got to check.
And she said Genesis, Genius 1:1. No, but I think she meant Genesis 1:1. No, that, okay.
That's even
All right, so give me the reference for yours.
Romans 3:23.
Oh, you went that one. Okay. Tell me that again so we can hear that. Go slow, though.
Çünkü herkes günah işledi ve Tanrı'nın yüceliğinden yoksun kaldı.
Okay.
For all
So
have sinned and come short of
there
the
you
glory
go.
of God.
that's good. So Kevin or Linda won. They quoted the verse in American English. If our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's the winner.
They're the
All
winner.
right,
The
congratulations.
reason I couldn't tell you the reference is ikinci Korintliler dort üç. So Korintliler
Yeah,
is
that's
Corinthians.
Corinthians. Okay,
Corinthians.
gotcha.
Korintliler would
Yeah.
have given it away.
And for mine, it's Romulalar. Romans is Romulalar.
Oh, okay.
So it's so close. Some of the things are very
Wow.
close.
Interesting, except for when they're actually
Except for when
speaking
you're
the
actually
word.
talking.
But man, I'm grateful to know we have a Bible in our language because that's very confusing. Like, what are you talking about?
Very much so.
So Jesus is. Tell me again. What's Jesus?
Isa is Jesus.
Isa. Okay. So let's say, how do I say hello to somebody in Turkish?
Merhaba. Merhaba.
I've heard that word before. Where have I heard that? That's in the Bible.
It pulls from, you're right. This morning,
I can't.
the teacher this morning teaching Sunday school actually said it somewhere in Genesis or Exodus.
It's close to it. It's Mara or Mara.
No, different one.
Yeah, it's close to it though. But
Very much.
Merhaba is
Merhaba.
hello, but it pulls from Arabic, so that's
Gotcha.
why there are some words from Arabic and Turkish.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, any other questions out there? If not, we're going to wrap this thing up. But as we wrap this thing up, I think there was one more question here that I missed. Do you feel the slowdown from COVID gave more time for planning and preparations or hindered them
I think
or frustrated?
All of the above.
it was a little above, but I mean, it did help. It has helped some, but when we were over there, when the slowdown happened in Turkey, we were nowhere near looking at starting a church. We were still just about a year into language. We still hadn't finished language school, so our focus was finishing up language school. That kind
Right.
of frustrated us because we were right in the middle of language school. We had like 2 months left, and then COVID happened, and it kind of pushed our language learning like 3 extra months later because we just couldn't. We could do some language school, but it had to be slightly different
Right.
online and practice and stuff. But yeah, I mean, we've had some time though after that to sit down, and then really coming back on this furlough, being here, we've been able to sit with Pastor Gardner and get some advice about when we go back, what he would recommend us do, and things like that. And so, and kind of the last little bit here, last week I spent some time working on some stuff, preparing what I'm looking to do to get people interested in coming,
Right.
lessons and things like that might draw people's interest in Turkey. And then I'm not planning. I've been working for a while. Even when the COVID had happened, I had been working on messages in Turkish and stuff like that. So that helped preparing gospel messages for when we started and stuff. But we're excited to be getting back, and we've got the next about month and a couple weeks we'll be spending not only family but also getting prepared to go back because I'm going to be putting all that stuff together and hopefully getting materials together and stuff like that, basic materials and stuff. So we're excited to get back. And
So it has slowed you down a little bit, but it's also give you some. So I guess it's kind of both.
I think on both sides of it, yeah. Some things it slowed down, especially the language side, it slowed us down. But it gave us time. When things shut down, we weren't able really to get out or do too much. I was like, all right, well, I've got to do something to practice Turkish, so I'm just going to start recording videos in Turkish. And then I started recording short gospel messages. A few of them, put them on YouTube and stuff like that. And it was practice for me, but also a way to put the gospel up there. And hopefully people, would come in contact
Hopefully
with it.
you said the right word for heaven and hell.
On that one, I made sure I wrote things down there.
That's good.
Cue cards.
Well, we're gonna close it out today, but thank y'all. I can't thank y'all enough for just taking time. I know nobody's here, but it's just been a privilege sitting and talking to you guys and learning about the mission field and your mission, your heart. And if there's one thing I can say as a pastor and as a representative of this church, is we're honored to have you guys representing us in Turkey. You are a phenomenal representation of Jesus Christ, and I appreciate y'all.
Well, we appreciate you, and we just want to say thank you to church for all your prayers. I mean, without your prayers, sometimes you don't know, but there's days you go through culture shock, you go through hardship, but there's people praying for you. You just feel God there, but also the financial support as well. All that you've done for us has been so useful, and everyone that isn't a part of praying, you have a part in what's going on in Turkey, and we're thanking you now for those future prayers as we get back to start the church, and we're excited to see God do a great work, and you guys have fruit, and part of that of seeing souls saved in the country of Turkey.
Absolutely. We've got fruit to our account because people are being given, and we've now supported you. It's been, I think, 2 years we've supported you, if I'm not mistaken. November 2018, I think, is that what you were telling me? So that's pretty awesome. We're going to close in a word of prayer, and then I'll get back with you guys here. So let's pray, and we'll close out this service. Heavenly Father, thank you for the Van Winkle family. Thank you for Brady and Sarah. Lord, their heart for you, their desire to serve you. God, I pray that you would be with the prayer request that Brady has asked for. God, I pray for this visa, that you would help them to be able to get that extended again for the 2 years. Lord, you've done it once. We know you could do it again. So, God, I pray that you'd work out all those details. And, Lord, I pray that when they get back, they'll find that perfect building that is meant for their church. And, Lord, I pray down the road they'll be able to buy a building and establish a church and see other churches established. Lord, Turkey was once a lighthouse. It used to have churches all in it. And, Lord, now that light is gone. Lord, you've sent Brady and Sarah there to be a light to that country. And, Lord, we're praying that you put a hedge of protection about them, grow their ministry, and, Lord, help them see fruit for their labor. God, we just thank you for their service to you. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Once again, if you want more information on them, you can go to truthtoturkey.com. That is in the comments section. You can also look them up on Facebook. You're on Facebook too, both of you. Brady Van Winkle. There's probably not many out there, right?
I don't think so.
So type it in there, Sarah Van Winkle, and look them up. And I sent him I didn't send you a friend request. I need to, but I sent him a friend request, and he responded the same day. So he'll accept you as a friend. So be in prayer for them. And if you can go on that missions trip 2021, go on that missions trip. It will change your life, okay? And we can see about going on one down the road, because I would love to come and see you over there in Turkey when everything's established. So thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful night. And remember, no service on Wednesday, but I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. And remember, the reason that we celebrate today, or Christmas, is because Jesus came to this earth to give us hope, opportunity, and provision. And come back next Sunday and you'll find out what that is. Y'all have a great night.